Winslow here, and today we're talking about something that is very near and dear to my heart. I know I talk a lot about how gaming can be beneficial for you and for your mental health, but can it also be bad for you? I'm sure we all know there is a lot of negative stigma surrounding video games and the gaming industry as a whole. There are a lot of people who think video games can cause violent tendencies in people, that it can be detrimental to your mental health, that it can make people less likely and unable to socialize. So we're going to take a look at some of those things, discuss them, see if there's any merit to those claims, and if so, what we can do about them. A lot of the time when people talk about the negative side effects of gaming, they bring up violence. There have been cases in the past where there have been people who have committed acts of violence, and then afterwards it comes out that they have played some sort of violent video game, whether it's a Call of Duty or a GTA game. But one thing that's very important about these things that we take note of is correlation does not equal causation. Just because these people are violent and also play violent video games doesn't mean the video games cause the violence. Often they're seeking out these violent video games because of their tendencies to violence. They're wanting to act out these scenarios, and so they go after the video games. The video games haven't caused them in most of those cases. Again, correlation does not equal causation. I play violent video games. I think most people would agree. I'm not a violent person. I am so squeamish. I can't even handle the sight of my own blood. Okay? So while video games can be tied to violent people, they're not the cause of that violence. And I think that's one thing we need to make clear. It is not a video game company's job to regulate who is playing their games. That comes down to the individual. And in the case of minors, that comes down to their parents. Video game companies cannot control if children are playing violent games because they're not in your house. They're not controlling what you do. They're not in charge of the media that you are consuming. Whereas your parents, or if you are an adult yourself, are in charge of that. So that's something we have to consider when talking about the negative effects of gaming. Are you making the right choices, or are the parents in the situation making the right choices? Another negative stigma that a lot of people associate with video games is this stereotype of the antisocial gamer. People think of gamers and they think of a 40-plus-year-old man living in his parents' basement, talking to no one, and just, again, being completely antisocial. First of all, there's nothing wrong if you are living in your parents' house, no matter your age. Sometimes that is something that you have to do, whether for personal reasons, for financial reasons, whatever it may be. But also, video games can offer an outlet for socialization that otherwise might not be available to people. There are people with severe social anxiety. There are people with fears. There are people going through all of these mental challenges. And in a video game, they can be that social person that they weren't before. If they're in a voice chat, if they're playing a multiplayer game, they can actually get out there and talk to people and make new friends and meet people. I am certainly not an introvert. I don't think anybody would think to call me that. I definitely don't live in my parents' basement, and I go out quite a lot. But I still have made so many friends from gaming just by playing these multiplayer games and by entering servers and meeting new people. I have made some of the best friends in my entire life that without games, I never would have made, whether because of distance or just because of who we are as people. Sometimes you just don't think you're going to be friends until you actually get to know someone. And that's how I have made some of my best friends in gaming. So this thought that gaming in itself makes you antisocial is just completely false. Yeah, there are introverts out there. Not everybody socializes the same way, but gaming offers an outlet that makes it easier to socialize in certain circumstances. And in my eyes, that will always be a positive. There are also people who think that if you play video games, that it is automatically going to be negative for your mental health. First of all, they clearly haven't talked to me, because I could tell them all of the amazing ways that gaming has helped me and the gaming has helped the people that I know and love. But just like anything, moderation is key. Yeah, if you're sitting at home and you're working 8 hours a day and then you're gaming for 16 hours a day, that's not going to be good for you, not only for your mental health, but for your physical health. So knowing when you have time to game and allocating that for yourself and doing it in moderation is very key. But that's the same for anything. That's the same for exercise. That's the same for even meditation. If somebody told you they were meditating for 16 hours a day, you would probably want to call a doctor, right? It's the same situation. Too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. And that's the same thing with gaming. It is a very crucial piece of my self-care. But if I do it too much, it instantly becomes something bad for me. And so it becomes something you just have to recognize, this is good for me in this amount and in this way. You have to know what works for you. And we all know what works for us in different ways. I can't tell you what's going to help your mental health necessarily, and you can't tell me what's going to help mine. We can all offer recommendations and tips and give our own stories. But when it comes down to it, everything is a personal journey, and it's going to come down to who you are as a person and what you need. In that same vein, we're going to talk about games that help you versus games that hurt you. I know that there are certain games that I cannot play when I am in a bad headspace because I either get too competitive or I get too serious about the goals that I'm accomplishing and I'm trying too hard. If I'm not enjoying a game or if I can tell that it's making me angry, that is not the self-care game for me that day. So it comes down to recognizing what's going to trigger those feelings within you, knowing when to stop, and knowing when maybe you just need to put that off the table when you're in that state. That's, again, a personal choice and a personal thing that you have to decide, and is going to vary from person to person. I cannot play games like League of Legends or Dota 2 when I am in a bad headspace because the environment and the complexity and the competitiveness of it all is negative for me. I know some people who it's the exact opposite. Having that goal to focus on gets their minds off of whatever struggles they're going through, and it helps them in that moment. So see what works for you, try different things, and make time for the games that you enjoy and that make you feel good. That's really what we're doing here, is just finding what works for you. If it doesn't work for somebody else, then they don't have to play it. You do what's good for you. I'm going to do what's good for me. And in the grand scheme of things, balance is key. Gaming cannot be the only aspect of your self-care. You also need to take time for setting boundaries, for taking care of your physical health, for even doing other methods of taking care of your mental health. I'm a really big fan lately of journaling and meditating alongside of my gaming. I journal and meditate throughout the day, and then I end my day out with gaming. That's how my self-care works for me. For me, it's a daily thing. For other people, it's not going to be. Finding that balance is what's going to make any self-care regimen, any self-care routine the best for you and what you need. Overall, though, gaming is not a negative. Gaming is not bad for you unless you're doing it too much and you're doing too much of a bad thing. If you're playing a game that makes you angry over and over and over again, yeah, that's bad for you. But if you're eating food that upsets your stomach over and over and over again, that's also bad for you. It's looking at things from that sort of lens. Too much of a good thing can be a bad thing, and too much of a bad thing just makes things worse, obviously. So taking care of yourself, finding out what works for you, and just kind of learning as you go along is my biggest recommendation. So no, gaming is not bad for you, but it can be. And being able to recognize that point and where you're at in your personal journey is what's really going to make the difference between good and bad. Gaming for me has been an incredible resource, has been something that has helped me through my darkest hours. And I know that it's been the same for other people. And that's not going to be the same case for you or for the next person or the next person. It all comes down to personal experience and how we use it. I really hope you guys liked this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe and hit that bell so you get the notifications. Thank you so much for watching this and my other videos. I really, really appreciate it, and I can't wait to see y'all in the next video.